What's going on, guys? If you guys remember from a couple videos ago, we had to pretty much cut up our core support in the S13 to get our radiator and our fans right over there. I don't know if you can see it, but we had to cut up our radiator support to get a radiator and our fans to fit. And we realized that only way to get them to fit was pretty much to have them essentially sitting straight on the radiator. And it worked, but honestly I prefer to have a shroud just because it's better for cooling, and I've had issues with this motor running hot. So we're gonna make the thinnest fan shroud that I can possibly think of. So let's go ahead and get to that. My idea for the fan shroud is gonna be, I'm gonna lay foam tape along the edges here just so we can get a nice seal or whatever type of tape, and then I'm gonna get a flat piece of aluminum here, and I'll make a template and have it sit pretty much directly on it. So it's gonna be, from where it originally was, it's only gonna be around 1/8 of an inch thick, I think this was. And it's gonna only bring it up that much more. So I already have our template made. We're gonna cut out these circles, but as you can see, it's gonna sit directly in here, nice and tight, and then with the foam tape, we'll seal off the edges. And hopefully that will help us get a little bit of better cooling in with this, because now we have a proper shroud, or we're gonna have a proper shroud plus the bigger fans. And if you guys don't remember, the reason why our old shroud didn't work was because it sat flush against the aluminum tanks, but it sat on the tank and up another 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, I think. So theoretically speaking, it was like that much higher. Now it's gonna be sunken into the fins in that little ridge. This is literally just gonna be aluminum, and boom, right there. So, that being said, let's go ahead and cut the circles out of this template. That way we can trace it completely on to our sheet right over there. Alright, so you guys saw we got it all traced up, and all of our circles and holes and squares and rectangles and all that stuff is drawn onto the sheet. So let's go ahead and I'll give you guys a little closer look real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get to cutting. It's not very dark, it is a pink marker that's kind of fading away, but we have just enough material left when we did the parcel shelf for it to fit perfectly. So we just gotta lop this little leg off, and it comes perfectly into there, perfectly into here. Then we just chop this off, and once we get our rectangle out, we'll probably work on cutting out the circles, or we'll do the circles first. I don't know, I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to go about this right now. Alright, so now that you can see, we got it all trimmed up to fit in here nice and not snug, but not tight. It just fits in there perfectly. Obviously there's little gaps like that, which is expected. I don't expect this shot to be perfect by far, but that's the point of having our foam tape that we're going to put on here to seal off all the open edges like that. So I think from what we're going to do now, I'm either going to work on, actually, you know what, first I want to work on doing the mounting tabs. So I figured that best way to do this was, I'm gonna put a rev nut there and there, and same thing on the other side. So it's gonna be 4 holding this strap down, and the purpose of that is this is where I can put it where I don't have to weld on any tabs to bolt on to that and to that. So I don't know how to weld, so we're gonna do what we can to make it work. We're just gonna straighten this out, and probably the same on the other side. Oh, that almost fell. Yeah, just straighten these edges out, and then we're gonna go ahead and drill a hole through it and get our mounting points done. Alright guys, so our radiator block off plate is all done. Now we have no air that can flow through the radiator, and we're gonna overheat everything. So that being said, see you guys in the next one. I'm just kidding guys. So as you see, the shroud the shroud that we're making is now bolted in. If I grab it here, it's not falling off, it's bolted in there. So, oh, I almost dropped it. Alright, anyways. So, now that it's bolted on with the riv nuts and everything, and I'll show you guys that in a little bit. Now we gotta work on cutting out the big circle to actually let the fan pull air through. We got our riv nuts fastened up in there. Let's look at this side here. Boom. Riv nuts are all in place. Now we don't have to have a nut and bolt. It's just straight bolt. So let's go ahead and unbolt this block off plate. I'm gonna call it for now because there's no thing. And cut the hole so it can be a fan shroud. Got the holes cut out and flappered away nice and, oh, not too smooth, but smooth enough. And what we're gonna do is, because it is gonna be a super thin fan shroud, so instead of it's not gonna butt right up against the fins here. What I'm gonna do is, like I said, I'm gonna have that insulating foam tape or rubber tape, whatever I'm gonna do, which is gonna raise it just a little bit. So it will actually lift this up off the radiator ever so slightly, but even with that, it doesn't leave us much room with a way to bolt on the fans to the shroud. Usually I would probably like drill some holes, use some riv nuts, because you guys know I love riv nuts, and bolt it on that way, but the riv nuts stick out quite a bit, and we're not going to have that much room for this to go up like that. This thing's going to sit as flat as possible. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to figure out the holes that I want to drill them out on here, and then I'm actually going to use, here, there's actually one here that I cut, those zip tie, like fan zip ties that you use to zip tie fans, to zip tie fans straight onto the radiator. I'm going to do that, but only to the shroud. That way the fans can be attached to the shroud, and then that just bolts on like with the 4 bolts that I showed you guys. So let's go ahead and mark up our holes and then get those drilled out. So as you can see, circles are cut out. We sanded it down, made it all smooth, so now there's no rough edges at all. I can run my fingers along them and not get cut. Fans are sitting over there. We mocked them up and they fit exactly how I wanted them to. All we have to do is get our little fan zip ties. That way, as you can see what I'm saying here, how there's not much room here. That's why we're just going to use the fan zip ties, which will fit slightly in that gap, which will be perfect. But with the foam tape around the edge, it'll seal off all cracks in the shroud, and it'll lift it up ever so slightly, which will give us just enough lift. I don't know exactly how to say it. I don't know the science behind it. But with it raised a little bit, it gets, and the fans here, lets us pull air through the whole entire radiator instead of through that little service spots that it would be on if it was directly on the radiator and outside the shroud. I'm rambling, I'm talking super fast, so I'm going to go ahead and not end the video, but I'm going to call it a night for today and continue when we have our zip tie fans and our little foam insulating tape. Alright, it's been a few days since that last clip that you guys just saw. We were waiting for these things to come into the mail, and this is the foam tape that's going to seal off the edge of the shroud to make sure we get a nice seal, because if you guys didn't know, the point of the shroud is to get the focus of air coming through the radiator, because wind's going to take the point of least resistance. So if you seal off the edges, it has no choice but to pull air through the front of the radiator. Also, we got the radiator fan clips that I was telling you about. That's how we're going to hold the fans to the shroud itself. So let's go ahead and unbox these, or unpackage them, or whatever you want to call it, and get to mounting the fans onto the shroud itself. If you guys saw that, but we tried to put the foam tape on the radiator itself, but it wasn't really sticking very well, so we ended up putting it on the shroud itself. You can see here what I was talking about, where it lifts it ever so slightly. So if I set this down on the radiator, you guys can't see from there, which I'll try to show you guys up close, but it's no longer sitting flat on the fin. So now there's a little bit of this whole shroud is lifted ever so slightly, so with the fans on top of the shroud, it'll allow for air to be distributed and pulled through the whole radiator. So let's go ahead and I might put a little bit more foam tape, like probably one in the center, just to make sure it doesn't droop, and maybe a couple here and there, like where the fan bolts onto. But let's go ahead and get the fans mounted onto this shroud first, and then we'll go from there. I'm not too sure where I left you guys off at, but let me show you guys what I'm talking about, of how we still have flow through the whole radiator. If you look here, you can barely tell, but the shroud is actually lifted ever so slightly. It's not actually touching the radiator. And yes, it's not that much room, but it's enough to where the fan sitting on top of the shroud is going to be able to pull air throughout the whole radiator, and not just this area itself, which is the whole point of a fan shroud. And if you guys saw, we got I'm pretty sure I showed you guys this, the foam tape around the edge. That's gonna seal off the edge. So when we bolt it down, it tightens up a little bit, and yeah, seals up the edge. And we changed our idea with the whole fan zip tie thing. It didn't really hold the fans in as well as I would like. I wasn't really comfortable with it. I felt like it would fall off down the road. So we went ahead and went to Lowe's and picked ourselves up some bolts, lock washers, and oh, that's a receipt. Where did it go? Where is it? Somewhere in here. Oh, and some nuts. So we're gonna actually go ahead and bolt the fan shroud, or the fans, onto the shroud. That way it's nice and secure, and I'm not worried about them falling off eventually. Also, picked up some training wheels because you can never have enough of these. So yeah, let's go ahead and get to bolting the shroud on. So, as you can see the bolts are through. It's super like, I don't know if you can tell, it's super low profile of a head. That way it doesn't intrude with the foam and the radiator. So I was gonna trim the excess here of the bolt, but it's not that bad. So I think I'm just gonna end up leaving it because, I don't know, who knows, we might have a better way of getting this on. But for now, it is solidly on there. I'm not worried about these fans falling off the shroud while it's in the car. So let's go ahead and bolt it onto the radiator and yeah, go from there. Here we go. The shroud is all bolted on the four corners where we did the rivet nuts. The fan itself is bolted on. It can spin. Nothing's intruding it. And it's solidly on there. I can shake the crap out of this thing and not have to worry about it falling off. Main reason why I didn't like those zip tie fan things was because we do go to Grange and we do fall off track a lot. And last thing I need is for us to dirt drop, have the whole car shake, and the fan fall off, hit the pulley of the motor, and potentially break something that could have been avoided. So we got our nice Dural fans in there, super thick. I think they're 22,000 or 2,200 CFM each. So collectively 4,400, which should be more than enough to keep the JZ cool, hopefully, along with all the other cooling mods we will have in the future for this thing. But as of right now, as you can see, super thin fan shroud. But like you guys saw, it is lifted in there, so it is actually still a shroud. It's not just focusing it on the circles, it's distributed within the whole radiator. That being said, I think I'm gonna go ahead and call it for this video. We got our fan shroud done, potentially the world's thinnest fan shroud, who knows? Honestly, I have no idea how it's gonna work, whether it's gonna be actually good or not. Richard suggested running some type of shroud with the foam tape so it does this, so this is what I made out of that suggestion. But nonetheless, I won't know how it works until we actually get the car up and running. So fingers crossed that it works out great and I don't have any more overheating issues along with all the other cooling mods I'm gonna do. But like I said, only time will tell. So that being said, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for sticking around. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.